My name is Jason Davis. Melissa and I run a small diner together. We had a daughter. No, to be precise, we didn't have a blood-related child, but Ashley was indeed our daughter. Both Melissa and I had difficulty having children, so 24 years ago, we decided to adopt. Once we decided, there were hardships like visits, interacting with various kids, and assessing compatibility. However, all those hardships were nothing when I thought about their smiles and the loneliness and insecurity they must feel. Initially, we considered adopting an older child, but as Melissa interacted with them, she realized that despite our desire to rescue them from their difficult circumstances at the facility, they might never fully accept us as their parents. Once we decided to adopt, I was prepared, but thinking about going through adolescence and other challenging times together, I wanted them to grow up thinking of us as their parents from a young age. I think this is because I'm immature, but Melissa said, I'm still worried. So, we adopted Ashley, who was 2 years old at the time and probably hadn't even realized she was abandoned by her parents. As Melissa hoped, Ashley grew up without any problems, bright and kind. Then, we spent 7 years together. Ashley had a smile just like Melissa, like an angel, too cute to ever think of letting go. Yet, fate was cruel. Ashley seemed healthy, but her body was a bit weaker than others. Moreover, it was a weakness that could only be seen in invisible ways. For instance, after an event, she'd be bedridden for a day or two due to fatigue, or she struggled with long-distance running, quickly becoming exhausted to the point of jogging at a walking pace. Even after walking a bit more than usual, she'd end up bedridden the next day, making us wonder if she was just a bit frail. There were no visible signs of illness like asthma or heart issues. So, we naively decided that if we just kept her physically active to a moderate extent like everyone else, she would get better, allowing Ashley to play outside with other kids and participate in PE classes without realizing. Little did I know that it was putting an incredible strain on Ashley's body. One day, during PE, while running a long distance, Ashley suddenly collapsed, hitting her head hard, and never woke up again. Even the medical examiner couldn't pinpoint the exact cause of her fall, leaving the reason Ashley lost consciousness unknown, and the case was closed. We were left in disbelief, watching Ashley ascend like smoke, only able to cry as we said goodbye. After all, even if we said she was physically weak, who could have imagined it would lead to her passing? In our generation, being physically weak meant maybe fainting during morning assembly at most. Why? Why did Ashley have to? Because there was no clear diagnosis. We failed to notice the SOS signals coming from Ashley's body, and day after day, we blamed ourselves. However, this school wouldn't apologize for such a thing, and Ashley's incident was treated as an accident due to an anomaly in her body. When we heard that, we felt incredibly empty and helpless. But considering we, who had been with Ashley all along and watched her more than anyone, didn't understand, it made sense that the teachers, who probably just thought of her as a kid who was bad at sports, wouldn't understand either, leaving us with no place to direct our anger. We were struggling with various emotions every day. No one was to blame. Knowing that only made us cry more, as we tried to distract ourselves from the loneliness without Ashley. Melissa breaking down crying in the mortuary and me, standing there stunned. We never thought we'd lose our daughter so suddenly. Since the day Ashley vanished from our lives, all the light had gone out of our existence. For a while, I couldn't muster the will to do anything. We mechanically ate, took baths, slept, and then morning would come, and we'd work. Since that day, it feels like we've just been living through the days. And the sorrow of losing our beloved daughter hasn't faded even after 15 years. Eventually, we started avoiding any topics about Ashley. We also found ourselves unable to watch family dramas or shows featuring young children anymore. No matter how much we tried to keep a cheerful demeanor and crack jokes in front of our regulars, deep down in the core of our hearts, we kept swirling with thoughts of why. A dark hole remained in our hearts, a void left by Ashley's absence. My wife and I had resigned ourselves to the fact that this hole would never go away. Now, if Ashley were alive, she'd be at the age to be working hard. Thinking about that, every time I see a woman in a business suit, I get this indescribable feeling. And when I look next to me, sure enough, my wife has a similar, somewhat complex expression on her face as she watches them. Even though she wasn't our biological child, we lived together, cried, and laughed together. We were a true family. Ashley was a bright and honest child, treating everyone without bias. One of our joys was going to the park for a picnic during spring. The menu for the picnic was always fixed: omelet, sausages, fried chicken, Ashley's favorite hamburgers, and a vegetable soup slowly stewed with various vegetables. The vegetables used in the soup were harvested from our garden, melting their sweetness into the soup, creating an indescribable flavor. That was Ashley's favorite. Watching Ashley eat with a smile gave us so much energy every day. It had become our greatest source of strength. So, after Ashley was gone, Melissa and I would talk every night about how we could possibly live a more positive life. As a result, we decided to create a diner where we could see the smiles of our customers saying delicious, and where they could relax as if they were at home. We visited renowned privately owned cafes, diners known for their delicious fried foods, and other well-known eateries famous for their specialty dishes. We offered to wash dishes or clean in exchange for cooking lessons. Of course, we were often turned down. But when we shared our daughter's story, there were people who agreed to take us on as apprentices under the promise not to copy their sauces or ingredient mihays. Thanks to these owners, we were able to create side dishes worth paying for. We also thought the location of the restaurant was important, so we chose a place between an office district and a university. Although land that was within walking distance from both was quite expensive, we managed to secure the funds by borrowing from banks and the like. Thanks to our efforts, our diner was thriving quite a bit. This bibimbap and vegetable soup are so delicious, I've started eating a lot more vegetables. All thanks to Jason and his team. Same here. If I were alone, I'd probably just grab something from the convenience store instead of bothering to cook rice or anything. I wouldn't be eating as many vegetables as I am now. I really have to thank Melissa and her team. Hearing that made us feel like we were providing nutritious meals to our own sons and daughters, and somehow, it made the loneliness fade a bit. Their words brought a great sense of fulfillment to our hearts. Our small diner was always bustling with students who didn't cook for themselves and busy office workers. Sometimes, we even had to turn customers away at lunchtime because we were running out of lunch menu items due to the overwhelming demand. The students were all earnest and good kids, enjoying the meals we put our hearts into cooking and leaving satisfied. Listening to their conversations during meals was also a joy, making us wonder if this is what it would have been like to have a teenager, feeling as if we were reliving life with Ashley. Most of our customers were around our daughter's age or a bit older, so naturally, the ones who came back several times started to feel like our own sons and daughters. I think that's one of the reasons why Melissa and I have been able to keep looking forward all this time. By now, we no longer get bogged down by thoughts of Ashley, and I often talk with my wife about how nice it would be to continue having lively meals with everyone, smiling as they eat our food. Then, one day, as I was cleaning up the diner, putting away the menu board and flags, and opened the front door wide, I noticed a girl, about elementary school age, staring intently at us. Huh? At first, I thought maybe the delicious smells had lured her in before dinner and said, "I'm sorry, we're closed now. We're open until 5, so please come back with your mom." But she shook her head vigorously. Taken aback by such a direct refusal, I went, and then the girl said, "It's not that. We don't have any money," with a look of embarrassment on her face. However, glancing at the clock inside the diner, I realized it was well past evening, around 7 p.m. Do kids these days stay out this late? Then it hit me that we're in an urban area. Maybe she's out late because of exam prep. So I asked, coming back from the library, but she shook her head even more vigorously. Looking around, there seemed to be no parent or guardian in sight. I wondered if she came from a busy family, but the thought of a young girl walking alone at this late hour was worrisome. Still, it's dangerous to be walking alone at this time. You should head home quickly. As I said this, her eyes moistened and she looked as if she had something urgent to say. Then suddenly, a loud rumble from her stomach. Could it be? Is your mom coming home late? And there's nothing to eat at home? When I gently asked her this, the girl, with a look of guilt, timidly nodded her head. "I'm so sorry, but I don't have any money. And yet, I was staring at your shop. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disturb you while you were closing up." It's dark outside. I should head home. That's when I noticed. The girl's clothes and her backpack were quite worn out, illuminated by the light from the shop. The backpack had more wear and damage than just a few years of use could account for, with an old-fashioned design that suggested it was likely a hand-me-down. Her clothes too were threadbare and somewhat grimy. Even the coat she was wearing didn't seem to fit her well, as if it wasn't bought with her in mind. The hands and feet that peeked out from the sleeves and skirt of her coat were alarmingly pale and thin. When I asked, "Are your parents still at work?" she replied in a feeble voice, "Yes." "Do you know when they'll be back?" "Usually around 9 or 10 p.m. Until then, there's no food at home." I was shocked. To think that from the time she got back from school, she'd wander the dark streets on an empty stomach because there was nothing to eat at home. The thought crossed my mind that maybe, but I quickly tried to convince myself that her parents were just very busy. As I asked more, it turned out that by this time, she couldn't bear the hunger anymore and would usually just fill her stomach with water. On days when there was only rice, she would fill up on plain rice, but it wasn't enough, and before she knew it, she found herself walking towards the inviting smell of food. Watching her talk, it hit me. Ashley was about her height when we lost her. I still didn't know this girl's exact age, but looking at her, a girl of considerable height, memories of Ashley at her tallest came flooding back. Realizing I couldn't just ignore the girl's plight, I said, "Hey, you must be really hungry, right? It's not good for a growing kid to go hungry this late. You need to eat properly for school. Come on, let me make you something to eat. Come inside." But I don't have any money at all. "I'm sorry. My mom will get mad at me, so I should really go back home," she said, trying to leave. But I knew she'd have nothing at home if she went back, and it was far too dangerous to let her walk down these dark streets alone. I immediately knew I couldn't let her go back by herself, so I gently stopped her. "It's okay, really. Come on in. There's warm soup here. Start with that to warm up your body. You must be cold in that skirt. Here, sit by the stove over here." With that, she hesitated but then slowly stepped into the diner, saying, Thank you very much." My wife, who had been watching our exchange from inside, quickly came over with warm vegetable soup and a blanket to wrap around the girl. Then the girl said, Thank you so much." It's warm. I hadn't had soup this delicious in a long time," and she squinted her eyes in pure happiness. When asked about her usual meals, she mentioned mainly eating discounted prepared dishes, sweet buns bought by her mother, free bread ends, tough outer leaves of cabbages and Napa cabbages from the greengrocer, and stir-fried vegetable scraps and bean sprouts. I was shocked. Back in our day, we went through times of hardship with such a diet, but even in today's age of abundance, there are still children struggling with poverty. Discounted side dishes might often be cheaper than cooking, but they are usually high in seasoning and fat, which are not the best for health. Feeding a growing child such food, I fought this and wanted to do something about her meals. My wife, noticing the girl's lack of vitality and the worn condition of her clothes, bag, and shoes as she staggered in, must have sensed the situation. Melissa didn't ask about the girl's home life. Instead, she only asked, "Hey, is the temperature by the stove all right? Are you not cold?" and similar questions. While the girl was earnestly eating her soup, I started heating up our diner's famous hamburger sauce. Then, when I put a burger on the thick, oiled griddle, sizzling away, the girl exclaimed, "Wow, this is nothing like the ones we made in home economics class. It looks just like the burgers I've seen on TV." Seeing her so excited naturally made me smile. I remembered how Ashley used to hop around excitedly when I was cooking. Those memories and her expressions overlapped, filling me with a nostalgic, warm feeling. "Here you go. Thank you for waiting." She must have been at her limit with hunger. Emily gobbled down the burger as soon as I served it. Despite it being hot, she quickly finished it off. Then, "This is delicious. I've never had such tasty food before. Sorry if this is rude to ask, but is this restaurant really fancy?" "No, not at all." "Why would you think that?" "Because the food at home doesn't taste much, and I've never had anything this delicious at school." Her words made me think that her home probably didn't have proper seasoning. This child might have never eaten vegetable soup, packed with the goodness of vegetables, A homemade burger other than ready-made ones, or even homemade egg dishes. Thinking about her tough and bitter circumstances, I couldn't bear the thought of parting ways with her as things were. When I asked about her age, she was just 9 years old. Her name was Emily Lopez. Curious, I asked about her mother's job and learned she juggles cashiering at a supermarket and a janitress at the nightclub. However, when they tried to move closer to the city for work, they couldn't find affordable housing, and the rent was straining their budget, making it hard to buy nutritious food regularly. Since her father left and they moved here, Emily tearfully shared that she has hardly seen her mother smile. "I'm sorry for making you talk about such painful things to strangers like us." "No, it's okay." Watching Emily happily munching on the food and saying it's warm, wrapped in a blanket with rosy cheeks, squinting her eyes, brought us peace. That's why I found myself wanting to help Emily in any way we could. It feels like I'm meeting with Ashley from back then. Is that weird? No, I was feeling the same way. It's very fulfilling, isn't it? What if we let her come here for a while? Melissa's old dream was to create a children's community kitchen. However, I was told by a friend who runs a restaurant that it would be very difficult to make the restaurant profitable, so I gave up on the idea. And it just so happened that my family owned a set meal restaurant, so we vowed to work together to make customers smile, even though it wasn't exactly what we had dreamed of. Melissa turned towards Emily and said with a slow smile, "Emily, whenever you are feeling hungry, won't you come here? I can't stand to see you suffering and getting unhealthy like this. When you're starving, it feels so lonely and sad, doesn't it?" "Yes, but we can't possibly take money from a child. I believe we adults have a duty to make the world a place where children can live healthily and with smiles. So, you can rely on adults who say it's okay to rely on them." Emily, surprised, responded, "Really? Is that okay?" "Of course. It makes me happy when you come by, Emily. Look, I was just thinking we needed someone to taste test our new product." "Hey, Emily, would you like to be our taste test?" Then, Emily's eyes widened, and after looking down with moist eyes, she quietly began to cry. Gradually, Emily started to talk about her mother. Her mother, not for a lack of love, was always working hard, hardly able to do anything outside of work. Despite working tirelessly at the supermarket and night jobs, it seemed they didn't pay much. That's why Emily's mother was dedicating herself to working 2 jobs, sparing little time for sleep. But eventually, she fell ill. Since then, she's been forced to reduce her workload, making it difficult to afford proper groceries. When Emily talks about her mom, she beams with a sparkling smile, saying, "My mom is so kind. Even though my school drawings aren't as good as others, she praises me a lot. Since I can't earn money, I can't give her gifts, but she's so happy when I write her letters for Mother's Day or her birthday. She keeps those letters in her wallet. We might not have as much money as others, but I'm grateful to have been born to my mom and to spend time with her." At that moment, Melissa's eyes sparkled with tears. I thought to myself, that must have been what Ashley heard from his wife, because I was feeling like I was about to cry too, thinking the same thing. After she left, we talked more about what we could do for her in the future. We want to do something more for that girl, not just cooking. Maybe because she's about the same age as Ashley, I guess. I think so too, but there's not much more we can do for her. Besides, Emily's mom might feel bad, like she's not doing enough, if we just start taking care of everything without asking. But even if she's here, she's still in an unfortunate situation. She may be mentally satisfied, and perhaps happier than kids born to less caring parents. But at her age, not knowing the warmth of a homemade meal from her mother. That's how the conversation went, and without reaching any conclusion, we went to sleep in an awkward silence that night. A few days later, while she was enjoying the lunch special, ginger pork, I asked her if we could maybe go and say hello to her mom. Then, Emily looked down and said, "But there was this one time when CPS people came to our house. Mom got really angry and sent them away. She said they weren't here to help because we were short on money, but to take me away from her. That would be so sad for Mom." It seems her teacher had called CPS without telling anyone, worried by Emily's unhealthy appearance and thin frame. But her mom was just really busy and stressed. To Emily, it felt unfair and intrusive. My teacher said I have the right to live in a warm room, wear proper clothes, and eat good food. But I don't want to be separated from my mom, and I got mad at her for meddling. Looking at Emily, with her tear-filled eyes, we started to question if what we were doing was truly right. Sure, we could help her temporarily, but just feeding her without informing her mom didn't seem right. So, I asked Emily, "When is your mom coming home today?" It turned out that Emily's mom didn't have to work her night job today. So, I decided to call the number I found on Emily's backpack. I wondered if Emily's mom would feel scared receiving a call from a stranger mentioning her daughter's name. But, feeling it was necessary to introduce ourselves and explain what we were doing, I nervously dialed the number, my heart pounding. After a few rings, Emily's mom answered the phone. "Hello." Trying not to sound suspicious, I introduced myself as the owner of the nearby diner. Hello." Apologizing to Emily's mom, who was understandably suspicious of me, I said, "I'm really sorry for calling you out of the blue. My wife and I have been running a diner in a town for many years. My name is Jason Smith. The other night, I saw Emily walking alone on the street, looking very down, and I got worried. It was late, and letting a girl walk alone at night didn't seem safe, so I invited her to stay at our place until her mother could come home. I'm really sorry for not greeting you properly before inviting her into our shop." Then, Emily's mom said, "Well, I have a few things I'd like to say, so I'll come over to your place." About 20 minutes later, a woman in flashy clothes stormed into the shop with an angry look on her face. "Emily, I told you not to go out alone at night. And now you've gone and caused trouble for these people. What were you thinking?" she yelled furiously. With a voice close to tears, Emily replied, "I'm so sorry. But I was really hungry, and we didn't have anything at home that day. And then I remembered how delicious the hamburger steak from this diner looked. Seriously, don't talk back. Didn't I just tell you about that little girl who went to the restroom alone and then got taken by a stranger? Kids like you, who aren't strong, are especially vulnerable." After saying that, Emily's mom suddenly had a realization and murmured to herself, "I apologize for yelling in your diner out of the blue, but kids can't resist when a man grabs their arm. I'm sorry. I've left her alone at home often and always told her not to go out alone. So this is the first time something like this has happened. I'm just really confused right now," Emily's mother hurriedly explained, then suddenly looked at Emily with a startled realization. It's my fault. Emily is so powerless. I haven't been feeding her enough," she admitted. She was aware that she hadn't been providing enough for Emily. However, she had been doing her best just to keep their lives afloat. It's likely that only now did she truly take a moment to look at Emily and realize the state her daughter was in. It was clear from her concern that she cared deeply for Emily. "I haven't been able to do enough. Not with the laundry, not with the cooking. And there were days I forgot to leave money at home because I rushed off to my part-time jobs. It's no wonder you ended up hungry, making such decisions. Not noticing you've gotten so thin. I'm a failure as a mother," she said, and then quietly began to cry. As we weren't sure how to respond, Emily exclaimed, "Mom, you work so hard for me every day. Even working 3 nights a week, if you did all the housework too, you'd get sick. Remember when you worked every night for a week and ended up developing fever from overwork? That's why you cut down to 3 nights a week. But if you don't rest, you'll collapse again. I'll do the laundry when I'm not too tired. I can only make fried eggs and ham and eggs, but I'll read more books and learn to cook more things. If you leave money, I can even go shopping. So, it's okay to rely on me more." Then, Emily's mom said, "Emily, while I've been busy working, you've grown into such a considerate child. I couldn't provide warm meals or pack lunch boxes for your school trips, nor buy you nice clothes. I've heard about the teasing from your teacher. I'm sorry. It's all because I wasn't good enough. I've been irritable and barely saw you except when you were asleep, not noticing even obvious changes. I yelled at you. I'm truly sorry." With that, she began to cry uncontrollably. And so, we silently waited until she stopped crying. Once she calmed down, I asked, "May we continue to help Emily?" At first, Emily's mom hesitated out of guilt, but eventually realized she couldn't adequately feed her daughter on her own and said, "I'm really sorry for my inadequacy. Please take good care of Emily." When Emily's mom said that, Emily ran to her, hugged her tightly, and started crying loudly. Seeing this, we were glad that Emily could finally express her feelings to her mother and show her vulnerability. After a while, when both had stopped crying, Emily's mom apologized to us many times, saying, "I'm sorry for doubting you earlier. That's all right. It's understandable to worry when a stranger calls about looking after your daughter. Hey, you're not old enough to be called an old man yet. Jason here is practically a grandfather. Hey, oh, I'm sorry. My wife likes to tease me and lighten the mood." Watching us with laughter were Emily and her mom. Seeing them, we had quietly made a decision. A few months later, we had opened a children's community kitchen. About the concern of running at a loss I mentioned initially, we managed by getting unsellable, imperfect-looking vegetables from local farmers and using funds gathered through crowdfunding. Emily started coming to the cafeteria every day. She told us with a smile that she was now getting enough nutrition to help with chores like laundry. We were glad to hear we could reduce the burden on Emily's mom, listening to the story with smiles. Meeting Emily, who shared the same age as our lost daughter Ashley, and seeing her smile somehow changed our feelings and fate related to Ashley. Unexpectedly, the connection between people led to the realization of Melissa's long-held dream. It might seem at first glance that we were helping Emily and her family. However, it also gave us the courage to turn our dream into reality, and the warmth and fulfillment of serving meals as if to our beloved daughter. Having continued to pour our love for Ashley into our customers, we believe that this meeting was a gift from above.